Chapter 1. The blessing gained by deceit. The sun was sinking toward the horizon, its last light, no longer scorching, but soft, like melted gold, flooding Isaac's tent. It settled on the woven rugs, painting the patterns in deep, muted shades of orange and crimson. In the air, which was still and warm, the scents mingled. The dust of the desert, dried grasses, and, faintly, that elusive Swedish aroma of old age and expectation. Isaac, the old patriarch, was no longer just a man, but a living memory. Feeble with years, his eyesight was but a dim flicker, shadowed by darkness. He could barely distinguish outlines, but his inner spiritual vision, his heart, still felt the deep and mighty pulse of God's promise, which had first sounded over his father, Abraham, and then over himself. This promise carried the weight of the entire world, a testament that was to pass to the worthy successor. It was in this somber yet solemn silence that he called Esau, his elder son. Esau, born first, seemed the embodiment of vigor and vital energy, a son of the fields, wild and free as the wind that wettled over the mountain ridges. His skin, tanned by sun and wind, always smelled of game, distant roads, forest resin, and the bitter smoke of campfires. To the blind Isaac, who himself was more attached to the quiet life near the tent, this scent was a life-giving elixir, a symbol of the masculine strength he was losing. My son, Esau, my strength. Isaac's voice was low and dry, like the whisper of autumn leaves falling to the ground, yet it held an air of finality. His trembling hand reached out in the direction where he felt his son's presence. Take your bow and your quiver. My heart longs for one last joy, one final taste of what this land has given us. Go hunting. Bring me some fresh, fine game. Prepare it for me as I love it, so that my soul may be satisfied. And then, and only then, I will bless you, my firstborn, with the blessing of Abraham, before my shadow finally departs to the ancestors. Let this be the last act of my will under heaven. Rebekah, Isaac's wife, was not idle. Her place was behind the dense embroidered curtain that separated the women's section of the tent. But her hearing, unlike her husband's sight, remained sharp as a knife edge. Every word that left Isaac's lips struck her heart like a hot stone. And this heart did not merely tremble. It began to beat with a frantic, almost desperate resolve. She knew this moment was not just a family tradition. It was a turning point in history, a clash of human will with divine providence. Her memory did not fail her. She recalled that tense, dark time when she carried the two boys in her womb, and they struggled within her like two warring nations. And the voice of God, clear and unmistakable, had sounded then. The elder shall serve the younger. This word was law to Rebekah, a law higher than the right of the firstborn, higher than the desire of a blind husband, higher than moral prohibitions. She saw Jacob, the quiet, thoughtful, settled man, inclined to contemplation and deep faith, as the only one capable of bearing the spiritual inheritance of their lineage. Esau, too attached to the material, to instant gratification, had despised his birthright for a bowl of lentil stew. His seniority was hollow. And on that tense golden night, while Esau hurried into the wilderness, Rebekah saw not merely a deception, but a necessary, decisive measure to save the future. A resolve, hard as basalt, and filled with the painful love for the son she deemed worthy, took root in her heart. She summoned Jacob, and her voice sounded like a call to destiny. It was firm, like that of a general before battle. but her eyes, fixed on her son, burned with an unbearable mix of anxiety, fear, and fanatical conviction. "My son," she whispered, pulling him closer so no wall or wind could carry the words. "I heard your father tell Esau, that foolish hunter, to bring him food so he might bless him. But that blessing is yours. It is yours by right, given to you by fate, and more importantly, by the Lord himself. Listen to me. There is no time to lose. We must preempt him." Jacob, the quiet man who had preferred to sit in the tent, pondering the mysteries of existence, was stunned and afraid. The mere thought of deceiving his father caused him physical trembling. "Mother, how can you ask this of me?" he stammered in a trembling, almost inaudible voice, his eyes wandering, seeking escape. "Esau is hairy, but my skin is smooth as a polished stone. Father, though blind, will touch me. He will discover the deceit. And then, instead of the blessing that would make me heir to the promise, I will receive only a curse for the deception and the disrespect of old age." Jacob's words were saturated with genuine, albeit cowardly, fear. But Rebekah was ready for this objection. Her love for Jacob was militant. She looked him straight into his soul, and her gaze was like steel. "Upon me be your curse, my son," she replied, and in that dramatic outcry was all her maternal readiness to bear the burden of sin. Her voice cut off any further discussion. "Your future, the future of the promise, is more valuable than any curse. Just do as I say. Time is running out. Esau is already chasing same." And she acted quickly, decisively, with the precision of a jeweler. She selected the best kid from the flock and prepared a dish from it, as identical as possible in taste and aroma to the game Isaac loved. While the dish simmered, releasing a rich, fragrant steam, Rebekah performed the transformation. She took Esau's finest clothes, heavy and smelling not only of game, but also of 1,000 scents of life in the open air, scents that Isaac could recognize without seeing. Jacob put them on, and this garment, retaining the warmth and smell of his hunter brother, became his camouflage. But the worst part was the touch. Rebekah took the soft, yet thick goat skins and covered his smooth hands and neck with them. The fur was sticky with fat. It irritated his sensitive skin, but created a perfect illusion of hairy Esau. Jacob stood before her, wavering on the threshold between being a son and an impostor, between truth and necessary lie. And so he entered Isaac's tent. The bowl was heavy and hot, the bread fresh and fragrant. Every step for him was like a step on burning coals. He approached his father's couch, where the old patriarch waited in the twilight, surrounded only by the aroma of food and the premonition of death. "Who are you, my son?" the old man asked. His voice was quiet, yet piercing, like a sudden ray of light. "I am Esau, your firstborn," Jacob replied softly. The words sounded like a knell to his conscience and scorched his lips, but he had already crossed the line. Isaac, confused by the speed of his son's return, was suspicious. He touched his hands. They were hairy, rough, and warm. He leaned in to smell Esau's clothing, and that familiar, wild aroma seemed to dispel his last doubts. "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's," the old man whispered, and within his inner world, a battle raged between his hearing, which spoke of deceit, and his touch and smell, which affirmed the truth. But he was too tired to fight. The desire to complete the ritual, to be satisfied, and to depart prevailed. Isaac received the meal, and it seemed to restore his strength. His heart melted. With a deep, almost ritualistic breath, He laid his hands on Jacob's fur-covered neck. And then he spoke the blessing, not just words, but a prophetic verdict that would change the destiny of nations. He gave Jacob dominion over the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, power over the world and its goods, and preeminence over his brother, commanding nations to bow before him. It was an irrevocable, absolute, supreme blessing, intended for the heir of the covenant. When Jacob, breathless with relief and shame, stepped out, before he had even walked a few steps, Esau burst into the camp, filled with triumph and exhaustion. His bow was slung over his shoulders, and fresh, still warm game hung from his neck. He quickly prepared the meal, releasing that same, real, rich aroma of the wilderness into the air. "Arise, my father, and eat of your son's game, so that you may bless me," he said, confident in his seniority. Hearing his voice, Isaac trembled so violently that his bed shook. His blind eyes flew open, as if he had suddenly seen into an abyss of horror. "Who are you?" Isaac whispered. "I am Esau, your son, your firstborn." Isaac was speechless. His breath caught in his throat. He realized he had been deceived, and by the son he loved for his wisdom and quietude. He understood that his last, most important spiritual act had been corrupted, but he could not take back the words. Who then was he who brought me food? "I have blessed him, and he shall be blessed." The old man groaned. Anger and pain, like two red-hot daggers, tore through Esau's soul. He cried out, and it was not a human sound, but an animal, wounded cry of an injured firstborn. He realized not merely the loss of inheritance, but the depth of the treachery his brother had used. "He has deceived me twice. First, he took my birthright, and now he has stolen my blessing." His cry echoed through the desert. Esau fell to the ground, broken, begging his father, "Bless me too, father, just with something." But for Esau, only the blessing of struggle, the sword, and the eternal desire to shake off his younger brother's yoke remained. Rebekah learned of it. Esau's scream reached even the farthest corner of the camp. A shudder of terror ran through her body. She had achieved her goal, but now the family tent was split in two. She hurried to Jacob. "Flee!" she whispered, and it was no longer a plea, but a desperate command. "Your brother's rage burns like fire. He wants to kill you. Go immediately to my brother Laban in distant Haran. Stay there until your brother's anger, like a wild storm, subsides. Only then, when he has forgotten his pain, will I send for you." And Jacob, the blessed heir, became that same night an exile, driven by fear and the shadows of his own treacherous act, an act that secured his destiny, but cost him his home. Chapter 2. The ladder to heaven, Jacob walked through the wilderness. It was not a journey, but a flight, each day saturated with the salty sweat of fear. His soul, previously quiet and focused, was now tearing itself apart. He was no longer the quiet dweller in tents his father knew, but a solitary exile, the shadow of his own sin. Behind him, in his consciousness, stood the image of the enraged Esau, and the sound of his scream, which had broken the silence of the camp, seemed to still echo in the dry air. Every stone, every shadow, every change in the wind seemed like a pursuit. The sky above him was vast and cold, yet wondrously bright. At night, it unfolded above him like a huge black canvas, thickly scattered with millions of stars. This starlight was like the silent, majestic gaze of God, merciless in its truth, yet still promising eternity. Jacob felt like a lost grain of sand beneath this grand vault. He had nothing but the promise he had gained by trickery, and it now felt like a heavy, undeserved burden. Exhausted to the core, his body trembled with fatigue. He knew he could not walk any further. The sun had long set, leaving behind only a phantom crescent moon. Finding a spot among a pile of gray, unwelcoming stones, he stopped. Where a soft cushion or pillow should have been, he placed one of those cold, soulless stones beneath his head. It was a symbol of his current state, the harshness of the desert, the hardness of his fate, the lack of warmth and comfort. His eyes closed, and the sleep, born of exhaustion, was deep and profound. But in that deathly silence, his spiritual being awoke. He dreamed a vision that was so vivid and real, it surpassed reality itself. It seemed as if the dark night sky had split in two, and from that rift poured a light far brighter than 1,000 sunrises. From this light rose a ladder. It was not made of wood or rope, but perhaps of pure light or precious stone or the very ether. Its base stood firmly on the same stony ground where he lay, having just made it a holy place. And its top, despite the boundless height of the heavens, reached the very throne of glory. It was a cosmic axis, a bridge between the sacred and the profane. And upon this ladder, which bore the universe, moved the angels of God, like streams of living light. They did not rush, but ascended and descended in a solemn, majestic silence, carrying out the will of the Lord, bringing messages and taking up prayers. Their movement was continuous, showing Jacob that though he was in exile, he was not cut off from the divine world. But the most magnificent sight was what he saw above this cosmic bridge. Above them, enveloped in a glory that radiated unearthly warmth, stood the Lord. His voice, breaking the silence of the wilderness, was not loud, but deep, like thunder rolling beyond the horizon, and at the same time tender, like a father's whisper. He spoke not to the world, but directly to the frightened, lonely soul lying on the stone. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your grandfather, and the God of Isaac, your father. Do not be afraid. The land on which you lie, this harsh, stony area, I will give to you and your descendants. And your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth, impossible to count. They shall spread to the west and the east, to the north and the south, embracing all peoples. And most importantly, in you and your descendants shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Not only shall you be blessed, but through you I will bless the world. And here is my promise. I will be with you. I will guard you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done everything I have promised you. This was not just a repetition of the old promise. It was personal confirmation for Jacob. The Lord did not reproach him for his deception, nor condemn his fear. He simply confirmed that the stolen blessing was his sovereign will. Jacob awoke, and a chill ran through his body, not from cold, but from the physical encounter with holiness. His heart pounded fiercely, and before his eyes still stood the reflections of the unearthly light. He rose, trembling, and looked around at the gray, unremarkable landscape. It was the same, yet now it was filled with an invisible but palpable presence. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I, a blind sinner, did not know it, he exclaimed. And in that exclamation was not just fear, but a deep, cleansing shock. How awesome and great is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. A sacred fear gripped him. He took the very stone that had served as his pillow, the witness to his loneliness and God's manifestation, and set it upright like an obelisk, turning it into a pillar. He poured the entire supply of oil he had brought with him upon its top. This was not a sacrifice, but a consecration, an act of transforming the ordinary into the sacred. He named the place Bethel, the house of God. Then Jacob made a vow. It was not a contract between equals, but a humble yet resolute statement of his dependence. If the Lord, the God of my fathers, will be with me and, as he promised, will protect me on this long, dangerous journey, if he gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear to cover my nakedness, if he allows me to return in peace to my father's house, then the Lord shall be my God forever, and this pillar that I have set up shall be a house for my worship, and of everything you give me, I will surely give 1/10 to you. The exile, fleeing human wrath, entered into a covenant with eternity. His stone, his fear, and his loneliness were transformed into the unwavering foundation of his future as the progenitor of Israel, the one who wrestled with God. Chapter 3. Laban and the love for Rachel. After long weeks filled with exhausting travel, fear, and the constant thought of God's covenant, Jacob finally reached the land of the east, the region of Haran, where his relatives lived. Arriving at a well that served as the heart of the local pastoral life, he saw 3 large flocks of sheep lying around it like silent guards, awaiting watering. A heavy, round stone lay over the well's opening, requiring several shepherds to move, a symbol of the difficulty and unity of their life. Jacob, weary but filled with new hope, struck up a conversation with the shepherds waiting in the shade. He inquired about Laban, the son of Nahor, and as if on cue, a young figure appeared. A girl with a flock was approaching the well. This was Rachel, Laban's daughter, not just a daughter, but a shepherdess who managed her share of the family wealth. When Jacob saw her, the world around him seemed to slow down and then completely stop. After the silence and the desert, after the fear and the brute physical labor, her image became a revelation to him. She was the embodiment of grace and quiet beauty, young, yet with eyes that shone with an inner light, clear as the morning sky, and at the same time full of the quiet wisdom of the earth. She carried an air of purity and simplicity that contrasted suddenly and strongly with the trickery and deceit he had just left behind. In the instant their gazes met, Jacob's heart, hardened by fear and guilt, filled with a new, pure, irresistible love. This was not merely infatuation, but the recognition of a kindred soul, a divinity emotion that would become the driving force of the next 20 years of his life. Through his veins, a strength seemed to awaken that he never knew he possessed. Seeing that, the shepherds were delaying, waiting for more people to gather. He could not bear it. The urge to lighten the burden of this young girl, to show his strength, became overwhelming. He approached the well and, to the surprise of everyone present, alone rolled away the heavy stone that required the effort of several men. This act was a farewell to the quiet Jacob, the dweller in tents, and the birth of a decisive man motivated by love. He watered Rachel's flock, and then, in a rush of overwhelming emotion, he couldn't restrain himself. He approached, kissed her, and, remembering who he was and why he was there, he couldn't help but weep. These were tears of relief at finding family, tears of sorrow for the lost home, and most importantly, tears of a first, intensely strong love. A startled Rachel ran to tell her father, Laban, about the strange guest, her father's sister's son. Laban, a cunning and pragmatic man, was pleased to have a relative who could serve him. He welcomed Jacob with feigned warmth. Jacob worked for 7 days without asking for a reward, and each day strengthened his feeling that he had found his place. And his love for Rachel, which blossomed under the scorching sun and starry sky of Haran, only grew, becoming the single, unwavering center of his existence. Laban, seeing Jacob's diligence and strength, decided that it was improper for him to work for free. And with his characteristic caution, he asked, "Tell me, what wages do you want for your service? You are my kin, but you should not serve me for nothing." Jacob, without hesitation, replied, and his voice held an epic oath of loyalty. "I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." He asked not for wealth, not for flocks, but only for the woman he had loved at first sight. Laban, realizing he was gaining 7 years of free, devoted labor, readily agreed, and those 7 years flew by for Jacob, like only a few days, like one short but intense night. His soul was completely absorbed in anticipation. He felt no fatigue from tending the flocks, no heat of the day, or cold of the night. He felt only the endless presence of Rachel in his thoughts. Love became for him not just an emotion, but an enchanted lens through which he viewed the world, making everything around him beautiful and tolerable. Finally, the wedding day arrived. All preparations were complete, the feast was gathered, and, as was customary, the night brought loud noise, wine, and deep, all-consuming darkness. But Laban, whose heart was cold and calculating, prepared a treacherous substitution. Under the veil of night, amidst the shadows and euphoria of the celebration, instead of the desired Rachel, he brought his older daughter, Leah, to Jacob's tent. Leah was more reserved. Her eyes, as scripture notes, were weak or soft, a sign that she was less noticed, less desired. She submitted to her father's will, filled perhaps with despair or a quiet hope that in the darkness of the wedding night, Jacob would not recognize the deceit and might come to love her. When the morning dispersed the shadows and the first cruel rays of light fell upon the face of the woman lying beside him, Jacob felt his heart burn with pain and icy anger. This was not Rachel. This was Leah. His first moment of joy and love had been cynically crushed by his closest relative. He rushed out of the tent to confront Laban, and his anger was as powerful as his love for Rachel. "What is this you have done to me? Why have you done this? I served you for Rachel, you know this. Why did you deceive me?" Laban stood calmly, his face impenetrable as a desert stone. His reply was cold and cynical, cloaked in the guise of local custom. "It is not the custom in our place to give the younger daughter in marriage before the firstborn, until the elder has been given away. You have made a mistake, Jacob." But immediately, he offered him a deal that was a refined trap and a brilliant maneuver. "Complete the wedding week with Leah, serve me 7 more years, and you shall have Rachel as your second wife." Jacob faced a choice: reject Leah, whom he now despised, but who was already his wife, and flee or accept Laban's servitude again for the sake of his pure, absolute love for Rachel. His passion proved stronger than his resentment. He agreed. Thus, 2 sisters settled in Jacob's house. Leah, who fulfilled her duty and bore children, but did not have her husband's heart. And Rachel, who had his love, his devotion, but initially lacked the most valued thing in their culture, children. Their lives turned into a drama of rivalry, where children, love, and faith intertwined into a tragic and epic knot. Chapter 4. Rivalry and the blessing of offspring. Bitterness settled in Jacob's tents, thick and relentless as the fog descending from the mountains. Two sisters, both wives of one man, turned his home into an arena of silent but cruel rivalry. Leah was the wife given by custom, Rachel, the one chosen by the heart. And if Jacob's heart beat only for Rachel, fate, it seemed, favored Leah. The Lord, seeing that Leah was unloved, took pity on her loneliness and repaid her with the blessing of fertility. Sons were born, and each one was for Leah a desperate attempt to win her husband's love, a cry from her solitary soul. She bore Reuben, and in his name echoed her hope. See, the Lord has looked upon my affliction. Now my husband will love me. Then Simeon, the Lord heard that I was unloved. And then Levi, now at last my husband will become attached to me. Each successive son was an attempt to build a bridge to Jacob's heart, but the bridge was constantly collapsing. Jacob valued her as the mother of his heirs, but his true, burning passion remained with Rachel. Finally, Leah bore Judah. Now I will praise the Lord. And in this name there was less despair and more acceptance of God's will than of human love. Her constant hope that Jacob would love her more turned to dust with every son born. She was the mother of heirs, but remained an emotional outcast in her own marriage. And Rachel, her beauty, her power over Jacob's heart, could not comfort her from one all-consuming tragedy: barrenness. She was loved, but empty, while Leah was unloved, but fruitful. This was a paradoxical curse, and it tore Rachel apart. Her tears were daily, and her pain was physical. One day, her helplessness poured out in a hysterical, desperate cry addressed to Jacob. "Give me children, or I die." This outcry was not merely a plea. It was an existential statement. In her world, a woman who does not bear children does not truly live. She has no legacy, no future. It was a cry for death. Jacob, exhausted by the rivalry and the tension in the house, replied with his own pain, but with a bitter truth often forgotten in the heat of human dramas. Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? Can I create life? This was a reminder that their destiny did not belong to them, and that even his immense love could not replace God's blessing. It was then, when human hope was exhausted, that ancient customs came into play. Rachel, unwilling to yield to her sister in this match for posterity, decided to act through a surrogate. She gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob, so that she might bear children on her behalf, and the children would be considered her own. And Bilhah bore a son. Rachel triumphed, and her triumph was wrapped in religious metaphor. She named him Dan, judge, because she believed, God has judged me, he has heard my voice. Then Bilhah bore Naphtali, my struggle. With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. Bilhah's children became the banners of Rachel's victory in the war fought for love and recognition in Jacob's tent. Leah, unwilling to surrender the initiative, responded in kind. Her jealousy and fear of ultimate loss of her husband drove her to the same move. She gave her servant Zilpah to Jacob. Thus, Gad, good fortune has come, and Asher, how happy I am, women will call me happy, were born. The children born of the maidservants became trophies of war, symbols of temporary victories in the conflict between the two sisters. After this period of surrogacy, God again opened Leah's womb, and she bore more, Issachar and Zebulun, and also a daughter, Dinah. Leah, it seemed, had reconciled herself to her role, the role of the fertile mother of Israel, even without her husband's absolute love. But the finale of this epic drama belonged to Rachel. After many years of silent waiting and prayer, God, as often happens, took notice of her sincere, deep sorrow. Her womb opened. She conceived and bore a son. Rachel's joy was boundless. It was so intense and complete that it washed away years of shame and despair. She pressed the child to her chest, and her face glowed with a pure, hard-won happiness. God has taken away my reproach, she said, and this was her final emotional liberation. She named the son Joseph, he will add, and in this name was not only gratitude, but also hope, a true prophecy. May the Lord add to me another son. This son, the beloved son of the beloved wife, was destined for a great but tragic fate, which would save their entire lineage. Chapter 5. Escape and peace. Jacob had served Laban for 20 years. This term was filled with endless labor, exhausting care for the flocks by day and night, and, most difficult of all, constant changes in the agreements. Laban, as a subtle manipulator, changed Jacob's wages 10 times, trying to retain his free labor and constantly taking back his word. Jacob endured the heat and the frost, the attacks of predators and the lack of water. He responded to Laban's cunning with his own wisdom, using the genetic traits of the sheep to increase his share, the striped and spotted ones. He became incredibly wealthy, but this wealth was earned through slavish labor and was a silent reproach to Laban's greed. However, Jacob's heart, despite his wealth, longed for only one thing: return. He was a stranger in the land of Haran, and his soul yearned for the promised land, for his father's house, even if it was overshadowed by Esau's presence. It was at this time when the tension between Jacob and Laban's sons reached its maximum. They looked at his flocks with unconcealed envy, saying, "Jacob has taken everything that belonged to our father." But the final and unambiguous word came to Jacob: "Return to the land of your fathers, to your kindred, and I will be with you." The Lord spoke. This command became the signal for action. Jacob, taught by the bitter experience of Laban's treachery, realized that he could not leave peacefully. He gathered Rachel and Leah for a secret consultation in the field, away from Laban's ears. Both wives, upon hearing him, supported his decision, for they too felt like exiles who had lost their father's inheritance. Rachel said with bitterness, "Does he not regard us as foreigners? For he has sold us and consumed the silver we earned." Thus, the decision was made: flight. One night, while Laban was away shearing his sheep, Jacob made a swift, decisive, and secret departure. He put his wives and children on camels, gathered all his possessions, flocks, servants, camels, and the camp, comprising decades of labor, moved in the direction opposite to Haran. This exodus was not merely a flight, but a great exit to his destiny. In this dramatic haste, Rachel performed a mysterious and secretive act. She stole the teraphim, the household gods, or idols, that belonged to her father. This was either a desire to take her right to the inheritance, or an attempt to protect her family by taking the symbols of Laban's authority. On the third day, Laban learned of the escape. His fury was unrestrained. He had lost not just a son-in-law, but a valuable worker who had multiplied his wealth and a huge part of his own property. He immediately gathered his kinsmen and began a pursuit that lasted 7 days. His goal was not reconciliation, but the retrieval of his property and, possibly, even the punishment of Jacob. The tension reached its climax when Laban finally overtook Jacob in the hills of Gilead. It seemed a sword would resolve the 20-year rivalry, but here, divine providence intervened. That night, as Laban camped, God, who had made a covenant with Jacob at Bethel, appeared to Laban in a dream. "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad," was the stern, unambiguous command. This dream tied Laban's hands. When they met, the tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Laban began with angry accusations, demanding an explanation for the secret flight and, more importantly, for the theft of his gods. "Why did you flee as if you had taken captives? I would have sent you away with joy. And most importantly, why did you steal my gods?" Laban shouted. Jacob replied to Laban, but regarding the idols, he was completely innocent. He did not know Rachel had taken them, and so, with terrible irony, he said, "Whoever you find your gods with shall not live." Rachel, hearing this, hid the teraphim under a camel saddle and sat on it. When Laban searched the tent, she said she could not rise because of the way of women, thus successfully concealing the theft. Laban, enraged but powerless, ceased his search. Then Jacob, filled with righteous anger, finally released the accumulation of 20 years of patience and humiliation. He accused Laban of abuse, cruel labor, constant deceptions, and changing wages. His words were hard as stone and scorching as the desert sun. Laban, subdued by God's warning and faced with the unwavering truth, could only reply that the children and flocks were his own. But his power was broken. They came to an agreement. They set up a stone, a witness. They named it Gilead, heap of witness, and Mizpah, watchtower, saying, "May the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight." This was not a covenant of love, but a covenant of peace based on mutual suspicion and divine oversight. After exchanging oaths, a shared meal, and a farewell kiss to his daughters and grandchildren, Laban departed. Jacob was left alone, but now he was free and belonged only to himself and his God. His path led further, to a meeting that was inevitable and far more terrifying: the encounter with Esau. Chapter 6. The struggle with God and reconciliation with Esau having overcome the obstacle of Laban, Jacob moved on. But the closer he approached his father's land, the thicker the fog of fear became. His main concern, the fear he had carried in his heart for 20 years, now took on flesh. He sent messengers to Esau to inform him of his arrival, wishing to soften his brother's wrath. The messengers returned, and their faces were expressions of horror. Their report was cold as steel. "Esau is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." This news was worse than a death sentence for Jacob. 400 men is not an escort, it is an army. This was not a meeting of brothers, but a revenge for an old sin that had finally caught up with him. Fear clenched his heart with unbearable pain, and this fear was fully justified. Jacob, a man of cunning and contemplation, felt trapped. However, Jacob responded to his fear with masterful strategy and deep prayer. He divided his camp into two, so that if Esau attacked one part, the other might escape. Then he assembled a colossal gift for Esau: hundreds of goats, camels, cows, and donkeys. He sent these gifts in waves, so that each caravan, meeting Esau, would remind him of Jacob's humility and prepare his heart for forgiveness. After all these human efforts, Jacob remained alone, and that night he offered a prayer that became the peak of his spiritual life up to that point. It was a prayer not of cunning, but of complete dependence, where he recalled the promise of Bethel and confessed his unworthiness. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which you have shown your servant. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him. That night, having brought all his people, possessions, and wives across the Jabbok River, he remained alone. The Jabbok River became not only a geographical boundary, but also a psychological frontier. Here he had to wrestle not with Esau, but with himself, with his past, and with his destiny. In the darkness, when the world stood still, he was attacked by the one who came. It was a mysterious messenger, an angel of the Lord, or, as he later understood, God himself, who had taken physical form. They began to wrestle. This was not merely a physical contest, it was a spiritual, metaphysical struggle between the man who had stolen the blessing and the God who was to confirm it. They wrestled until daybreak, and Jacob, despite his natural weakness, showed incredible, desperate fierceness. This was a fight for his life, for his name, for his inheritance. The messenger, seeing that he could not overpower Jacob by strength, touched his hip joint and it was wrenched. It was a moment of instant, unbearable pain that would forever remind Jacob of his encounter. Physically, he was broken, but his will remained unbroken. The messenger said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob, with his wrenched hip, clung to him with his last strength. His desperate yet magnificent demand whispered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." This was not a demand of pride, but the cry of spiritual thirst, of a man who now knows that the true blessing can only be obtained from God, and not through deception. The messenger accepted this demand, but first asked, "What is your name?" "Jacob," the supplanter, heel grabber. And then came the verdict that changed the history of the world. "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men, and have overcome." In that moment, Jacob received a new identity. He was now the one who struggles with God. His past was forged in the fire of struggle, and his new name became the eternal testament of his people. Jacob named the place Peniel, the face of God, for he said, "I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved." He departed from Peniel, limping on his thigh, a physical evidence of his struggle with eternity. The next morning, he saw Esau approaching with 400 men, and his heart clenched again. But Jacob, now Israel, did not hide. He limped forward, bowing to the ground 7 times until he reached his brother. This act of humility was the complete opposite of his former cunning, and here the miracle of forgiveness happened. Esau, whose heart should have been filled with hatred, suddenly ran. His rage was extinguished. He rushed to Jacob's neck, embraced him, and both brothers wept. A weeping that was a liberation from 20 years of resentment, guilt, and fear. Esau accepted Jacob's gifts, accepted him and his family. The ancient enmity vanished in the embrace of forgiveness. Jacob, who wrestled at night, received peace by day. His struggle with God led him to reconciliation with man. He returned to the promised land, physically broken but spiritually whole, and ready to bear the burden of his great new name, Israel.